Hi, my name is Aaron. This is my show Reeducation, and today I'm going to talk about how, in some ways, we are actually winning. And, unfortunately, how the establishment is trying to destroy those wins. What exactly am I talking about? Well, a good example of how we are winning, the people that is through the teachers' strikes that happened all throughout 2018 and now through the beginning of 2019. Of course, the teachers in West Virginia started a strike last year on account of them having to wear a Fitbit to track their steps in order for them to keep their healthcare coverage. This, of course, being Orwellian as all hell, they decided that they would go on strike instead and demand that they get more pay and better working conditions, smaller classrooms, that sort of thing. And since the teachers in West Virginia were actually able to get their concessions met, this started a wave of protests and strikes all across the United States. And we've even seen teacher strikes happening elsewhere as well. For example, they're talking about having one here in Canada. It is very successful when people that are relied upon by the general public do a strike. Usually, it means that some sort of essential service is immediately cut out, and that makes life incredibly difficult for everyone. And it's something that you have to fix immediately. Teachers going on strike means that, well, all of these children that would usually be going to school are now going to have to be at home. And if they're all at home, then that means every one of these parents are going to have to find places for these kids to go or somebody to take care of them, and that's going to be an incredibly big hassle, an incredibly big expense to a lot of people. That means a lot of angry people are going to be standing up and demanding that something gets done. And that's the beautiful part about collective bargaining. That's the beautiful part about us being able to use our collective ability as people to actually fight against the system. It works. It always has. And it's something that you very rarely see in a good way on the mainstream news, on the corporate-run media. When they do show protests, it's either because the protest has gotten so big that they can't ignore it, or somebody went and did something violent and they want to show a fire. The mainstream news will literally not project anything on the screen that goes against the state narrative unless it bleeds. If it bleeds, it leads. So it's likely that you haven't heard a whole lot about these teachers' strikes. And if you have, it was probably from a news source that wasn't in the mainstream. But I digress. These protests are so unbelievably effective because they actually make a massive difference in a very short amount of time. And it's not just teachers that have the ability to do something like this. It's anybody that provides an essential service. Things that you would never imagine would be so important. Like garbage men. You know, the people that we barely ever think of. They just come by, collect your garbage, and go away, and you never have to give them a second thought. But if garbage men were to go on strike, well, you'd have a lot of garbage piling up very quickly, and all of a sudden people would notice, and they would need that stuff removed. They would stand up, get angry, and demand that things happened. Because having essential services go on strike like that means the system doesn't function. It gets blocked up. It is unable to do anything that it should. It is unable to provide for the people the illusion of a functioning society. And if people see that the society isn't functioning properly, then they're going to get mad. Professions like letter carriers, long-haul truck drivers, or farmers, if they go on strike, that means the entire system does not function. If a letter carrier goes on strike, that means that anybody that orders a product online doesn't get it. That would immediately create a whole bunch of problems. If long-haul truck drivers go on strike, that means that goods aren't going to be making it to stores in a reasonable amount of time. And most stores don't keep that much reserve product in the back, especially not food stores. So that would mean that even a few hours of a long-haul truck driver strike means massive ripples of problems through the system that everybody notices right away. And as far as farmers go, they control the food. Those industries are so important to the economy. Actually, almost every industry where people are underpaid and overworked are incredibly important to the economy. It's funny that the people that usually get paid the least, like your teachers, your bus drivers, your letter carriers, and so forth, happen to be the linchpin that holds this whole system together. And without them, the whole thing falls apart. If you were to get rid of the teachers, everybody notices like that. But if you were to get rid of all of the multi-million-dollar day traders, I don't think anybody would ever know. It just wouldn't affect the system. People that get paid unreasonably high amounts of money usually have very little to do with the economy itself. If you were to remove them, if they were to all go on strike, nobody would notice. But people like you, regular working class people, if you go on strike, that's something that everybody notices because your jobs are actually important. You're taught that they aren't for some reason, but they are. They're more important than you think. The bus driver or the garbage man is far more important than the stockbroker or the CEO. If every CEO was to go on strike, who would notice? They already have their general managers doing their work for them in most cases. In fact, if Jeff Bezos, Rupert Murdoch, Bill Gates, and George Soros all went on strike, or just went away, I don't think that would change the economy one tiny little bit. In fact, I think it would probably make things a whole lot better for all of us. But if the people that pump your septic tank went on strike for a day, the entire economy would fall to shit. So that's why it's so important that we actually do direct action. That's why it's so important that people get out there. They strike, they do sit-ins, they do walkouts, hopefully even a general strike. And then you actually see real change. But that doesn't mean that the establishment and the system aren't going to fight that. Like in West Virginia right now. Because this teacher's strike was so effective, and because they were able to actually get their concessions met, the West Virginia Senate made it illegal for teachers to strike. Because of course they would. Anytime they see that we are actually making progress, they make it illegal. It's the same reason why in Occupy, back 150 years ago, they made it illegal for you to actually occupy Wall Street. You had to protest in the free speech zone. You weren't even allowed to bring megaphones or use the people's mic. Remember all of this? But when you actually have dedicated people who want to see a real change, they're willing to go against some of those things so they can make a difference. The original teachers' strike did come to an agreement where the teachers would get all of the concessions they wanted, but the other people, like the bus drivers and the lunch ladies, were going to be left behind. They weren't going to get anything. But the teachers looked at that, looked at the union and said, F no. We're going to fight just as hard for them as we did for each other, and we're going to make sure that they get paid as well. And they did. That's when you actually see real change. That's when you actually see a real difference. But the penalty in West Virginia now, and likely will be seen as a penalty that goes all across many parts of the United States, is that if a teacher is to go on strike, they can be fired. Or, through the entire time that they are striking, they can lose their pay, making it into nothing more than a hostage situation. They're being forced to work under whatever circumstances, whatever conditions they decide to have them work under, and they can't ever do anything about it. But that's because these tactics work. You either live under their tyranny or you fight against it. And for the most of us, when we get to the point of where we have nothing else to lose, fighting against it is kind of the only option. And right now, they're pushing a lot of us to that point. But I started this video off on a lighter note, and I want to end on one as well. These protests do work, and your voice can be heard so long as you're able to get together with people in your workforce, in your community, in your family, in your friend group, and go out and make a difference. Go out and try to make a change. Stand up for yourselves. Go to a protest. Say your piece. Demand your rights. Bargain to get your life back. You have to be the one that does it because no one is going to do it for you. But that's okay because you can do it. And when you do, you'll realize that it works. At least that's the way I look at it. My name is Aaron. This is my show, Reeducation. If you do get a chance, check me out on Patreon. Every dollar does help fund this show, and yeah, I'm losing my voice. That's why I was cracking and breaking apart throughout most of this video. So, thank you very much for watching. My name is Aaron. Have a good day.